In the animated series Creature Commandos, Nina Mazursky's tragic journey underscores the deeply ingrained prejudice and exploitation of those who deviate from the norm, particularly those who look like monsters. Nina's story is one of innocence and forced compliance, a woman condemned by nothing more than her inhuman appearance and ultimately used as a pawn in a war that she had no place in. Her experiences highlight the moral and ethical failures of Amanda Waller and the system she represents, a system that discards individuals based on superficial judgments and coerces them into violent, life-threatening situations without regard for their humanity. Nina Mazursky is introduced as a woman who never asked to be different. Born with a set of lungs outside her body, Nina's father tried to protect and care for her by creating a device to allow her to breathe. Then he would try to experiment with her DNA in order to cure her, which will end in failure.
Among which it seems her lungs are mostly outside of her body.
Nina. Her name is Nina. No, silly. Don't worry, honey. I have a new treatment we're gonna try. Need to lug around an extra 30 pounds in her lungs.
Daddy?
His well-meaning but misguided experiment on her ultimately turned her into a fish mutant. From the moment of her birth, Nina's existence is defined by the rejection of her humanity based solely on her appearance. She becomes a social outcast, bullied and rejected by society. This exclusion forces her to retreat into Star City's sewers, where she lives in isolation, disconnected from a world that had no place for someone like her. She didn't choose to look like a monster, and in fact, her actions throughout her life show that she was nothing like one. She never killed anyone, never committed a crime, and only wanted to live in peace. Yet, her deformity became the central factor in her classification as a threat. This deeply unfair treatment is compounded by the callousness with which she is treated by Amanda Waller. Waller's decision to recruit Nina into Task Force M is a reflection of her ruthless pragmatism, with no regard for Nina's individual needs, desires, or well-being.
Last one is Nina Mazursky.
What use is she walking around in a fishbowl?
Get her in water, it's a different story.
She's been homeschooled. She speaks 4 languages and is well-versed in Shakespeare and calculus.
Amanda Waller's primary goal is to assemble a team capable of carrying out dangerous missions, regardless of the personal cost. Nina's innocence, her desire for peace, and her incapacity for violence are all irrelevant in Waller's eyes. Instead of understanding Nina's trauma and unique situation, Waller forces her into a role that she was never prepared for: a soldier, a killer, a pawn in a game of war. Nina was forced into the team because she was useful in her monster form, without consideration for her emotions or the psychological damage that might result from her being treated as expendable. Nina's tragic death is the result of this systematic dehumanization. Tasked with assassinating Princess Ilana Rostovic, Nina is instead ultimately killed by the very person she was meant to harm. She was judged based on her appearance rather than her character, and she died for it. She should have never been in a situation where she has to harm anyone.
Me?
Yes, you. You need to kill the princess.
I don't know how to kill someone.
You shove the blade into her belly and twist.
Bride, I...
Another human out there in the pond. But you're a monster, like us. You're the biggest freak of us all.
The system that Waller upholds, where individuals like Nina are thrown into the fray without concern for their lives, claims yet another innocent person, whose only crime was being born different. By forcing Nina into a conflict she had no stake in and could never understand, Waller condemned her to an early death. Nina was not a soldier, nor was she a killer. She was simply a woman who wanted to live a peaceful life, but her appearance and the prejudice it inspired led to her tragic end. Nina's innocence and humanity were overlooked by those who had the power to make choices. and in the end, it was those choices that led to her untimely demise. Nina Mazursky deserved a life of peace, yet instead she was sacrificed by those who failed to see her for who she truly was, a person, not a monster.
Another human out there in the pond. But you're a monster, like us. You're the biggest freak of us all.